Running is the most important aspect of Hyrox. In this video, we are going to break down the most important sessions, their purpose, and how to structure and implement them into your training. Running is the most fascinating form of locomotion. We can not only cover all intensities from very low intensity like a slow jog or run walk to the highest intensities like a sprint and going to your absolute top speed, but we can also induce different physiological adaptations based on how we include running in our training. First of all, there are some preliminaries before we go into the details. In all of our programs, we often work with RPE. RPE stands for Rate of Perceived Exertion and is basically a scale of how we would rate the training intensity. This is something very subjective and we use a 1 to 10 scale for this. Another thing we would use to prescribe running intensity is percentage of heart rate reserve. While you can use several measures that include heart rate, we prefer this one as it seems to be one of the most accurate. How do you calculate this? It's a very simple equation. You take your max heart rate and then you subtract your resting heart rate. If you don't know your maximum heart rate yet, we would recommend testing it out. Here's a simple protocol you could do to find your maximum heart rate. Find a 5-minute hill in your area and run it up as fast as possible. Then jog down and repeat this one more time. The maximum heart rate you have measured during the second repeat is basically the max heart rate. The resting heart rate can either be measured sitting or lying down or standing. We would recommend taking your standing resting heart rate. You should be in a relaxed and recovered state, and you shouldn't be doing anything or being stressed about anything while measuring this. Now, how do we actually use percentage of heart rate reserve in our training? Let's say the training has a prescription of 70% of heart rate reserve for your steady long run. What you would do now is, let's say you have a max heart rate of 190 and you have a resting heart rate of 50. You do the math and you come out at 140 of your heart rate reserve. Then you multiply this by 0.7 to get 70% of it. This is 98. And then you add back your resting heart rate of 50, so you arrive at the value of 148 as your limit for your steady long run. Another way of prescribing intensity for your running is a formula applied to the pace you can hold for a certain duration. If you sign up for our Hyrox program, which you will find in the description below, you will find a tool where you just put in the distance you have achieved in a 20-minute all-out run that will calculate all the paces you need to be running at for this session we're going to show you now. Now let's get straight to the main part. We're going to break down the 5 key sessions that we think you should include in your program. The first one is what we would call an easy run. The purpose of this session is to build endurance, or said in other words, an aerobic base. This will help you to build the capacity to handle more volume and intensity or training load in the future. The benefit of these sessions is the lower intensity will allow you to accumulate a larger volume and really build up your capacity. In terms of intensity, we would usually prescribe these at an RPE of 5 to 6 or a percentage of heart rate reserve of 60 to 70. You could also say that these runs should be done at a conversational pace. So you should be able to speak a complete sentence while you're running. That might be singing along to a song or talking to your training buddy. In terms of duration and frequency, we would recommend doing 1 to 3 of these easy, longer runs for 30 to 90 minutes. We understand that this is a pretty big range, but so is the range of trainees for Hyrox. That means if you're just starting out and you don't have much experience with running, we would recommend starting with one run of 30 minutes at this conversational pace. As you build up your capacity and you gain more years in training, you then can increase the frequency, and then once you achieved a frequency of, let's say, 2 to 3 of these easier runs every week, we would recommend gradually increasing the length of each run. Let's continue with the second session we would recommend including in your training. And this is a moderate pace run. Here we would prescribe an intensity of RPE 6 to 7 or a percentage of heart rate reserve of 70 to 80%. These runs should build your stamina and build up your capacity to maintain a strong pace over a longer period of time. This is still a lot slower than our Hyrox race pace, but it's definitely quicker than our easy runs. You should be doing these sessions maybe once a week, but not every week needs to have a moderate pace run. The total session duration or the accumulated work time at this pace should be something like 20 to 40 minutes. I said accumulated time because this doesn't need to be a steady run. This could be something like we do 2 rounds of 15 minutes of work and then 5 minutes of easy jog in between. So we accumulated 30 minutes of work at this particular intensity. The runs in the third session are what we would call race pace running. If you come from a running background, you would probably have seen this prescribed as a threshold session. The RPE of these sessions should be 7 to 8, or you should be working at 80 to 88% of your heart rate reserve. These sessions are particularly important as they are very specific for your running at the Hyrox race. Obviously, there's a range of paces we would have for these sessions as well, but they are very close to your Hyrox race pace. And these sessions will build your speed, your stamina, and all these specific aspects for racing in Hyrox. And we would recommend doing these once to twice a week, depending on how much intensity or training load you can manage and you can handle. The total accumulated work duration should be 20 to 40 minutes. If you're just starting out, start on the lower end, and then as you get more experience, you can work yourself up. An example session here could be 4 rounds of 6 minutes on, 3 minutes light jog in between. And during the 6 minutes on, you try to achieve your race pace or maybe go slightly slower and then work up and increase your paces as you go on. Another progression here could be increasing the amount of intervals, or you could also increase the length of each interval. That means instead of doing 6 minutes, you could do 7 minutes, and then maybe the subsequent week you would do 8 minutes. Okay, let's continue with the fourth session we would recommend. And these are the hard pace runs. If you come from a running background again, you might have heard about the term VO2 max session or VO2 max work. And this is basically what this is. VO2 max is our aerobic ceiling. That means how much aerobic power can we produce. This is basically the top power output you can hold for, let's say, around 5 to 6 minutes. These sessions are usually very hard and are prescribed at an intensity of RPE 8 to 9 and a percentage of heart rate reserve of 88 to 95%. So you'll be working close to your very maximum. That also means these sessions bring about a lot of fatigue. This is a good thing if we're in a building phase, but the closer we get to our race, the more we want to avoid this particular fatigue. Also, when programming these sessions, make sure that you start them well recovered and that you have a recovery day right after and not do any intense training in the subsequent day. When programming these sessions, you don't want to do more than 1 session a week. You could even just do 1 session every 2 weeks because, as I said, these sessions can be very fatiguing. The total accumulated work duration here would be something in between 10 to 20 minutes. As hard running, especially the running at paces required to get into these intensities, can be very taxing mechanically. This is something that is often done uphill as well. That means you find a hill and then you do your hill repeats, let's say of 2 to 4 minutes for 3 to 5 repeats with a long rest in between to achieve these intensities while reducing the mechanical loading on the body because you're going up on an incline. Okay, now we've already arrived at the last session we would recommend, and this is speed work. Speed work is often done as fast running with a lot of recovery in between. The fast running is not sprinting, this is very important. The fast running is running at your fastest maintainable pace for a very short amount of time. This could be something from 10 seconds up to, let's say, 200 meters, which might take you 30 to 45 seconds. But always make sure that you have a long rest in between so you can really work at your best and that you can really focus on the intent and the purpose of each particular stride that you do. The main goal here is just to improve the efficiency of your running and really build the strength that is needed for faster paces. This is something we would recommend doing once every week, as this is not very fatiguing and can easily be added in the long run. Now you had a detailed overview of all the sessions you need to be doing to improve each aspect of your running for Hyrox. Remember that we have a tool to calculate all of these paces in the description down below if you sign up to our Hyrox program. Now, thank you for watching and see you in the next one.